Book Nook, take a look at that book, yeah. Book Nook, it's time to read a book. Everybody open to page 1. Don't forget to pay attention. It's a book nook, yeah, oh yeah.
Well, that's right. It's Book Nook, episode 2. We are back to talk about another wonderful book on this Tuesday in March. With me, of course, is Dwain Burke. How are you today, Dwain?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk about this book. I've been waiting for weeks, trying to not spoil it because I'm so excited about this book.
Yeah, we kept having to reschedule a little bit because stuff happens, but it's finally time. And with Dwain and myself is Aiden. How are you tonight, Aiden?
I'm good. Dude, that fucking intro is awesome. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I don't even know if we can cuss. I'm so sorry.
Fine. No, you're
okay.
I don't
Cool.
mind.
Man, Dwayne knows what you're getting whenever you ask me to come on a show. That was fucking awesome. That was an amazing intro, guys. So glad to be here. I don't read often, but when I do, they're either comic books or they're books with black people in them. So I'm excited to be here to talk about this.
Yeah.
That's the way we roll.
Oh,
I mean, man, listen, if you tell me that you want me to read a book, it's either got to have a lot of pictures in it or it's got to have black people as the main character. And boy, oh boy, are there a lot of black people in this book. And boy, oh boy, am I happy to talk about it. And my first time on this channel, probably going to be my last time by the end of the stream. So I got to milk it while I can.
So Max, I don't know if we have any business stuff to get out of the way before we.
Yeah, sure. We have some stuff coming up over the next couple of days. Tomorrow night, Chris Clark is back with Suddenly Soundtracks. They're going to be going through Linkin Park's album Hybrid Theory and use the rating scale they would for a regular Suddenly Soundtrack, skip it all the way up to Hard Rockin'. And this was a patron pick by the great Sean Wingblade. Thank you, Sean, for your support, and I know it's going to be really fun tomorrow night. Thursday night, Front Center Mezzanine is back with our guest, Andrew Kober. He has been on Broadway in so many shows like Hair and School of Rock and Les Mis, so getting to sit down and talk to him about his life and his career is going to be really exciting. And then Friday night, we're doing a watch-along of the film The Invitation by Karen Kusama. We've been doing Women Filmmaker Month, and this is another great one. And it was picked by our executive producer, patron, Brandy Parker. So make sure you come hang out with us at all of those different shows we got going on this week. But that's enough business.
All right. I'm a little hurt that I wasn't asked to be on the Hybrid Theory show because it is notoriously it's my number one no skip album. I know
it's not my show. I don't book that show.
I know. I'm just teasing because it is whenever someone asks me what a no skip album is, I always say Hybrid Theory. For me, it is an absolute no skip album.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about music.
I don't know anything about music unless the dude's name is Lil or Young followed by something else. No, I know nothing else. Y'all see me? I have purple dreadlocks. What do y'all think? What do y'all think I listen to?
That's funny.
But yeah, so we're not here to talk about music tonight. We're here to talk about Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. It is a young adult fantasy novel, coming of age story. I think is a great way to describe it. That takes a very interesting way of looking at tyranny as well as racism, colorism, slavery, and I don't want to get too far into this before I let anyone know that this is going to be completely spoiler filled. We're going to talk about characters, plot. So if you haven't read the book yet, please pause, read the book, and then come back and join the conversation because I'm telling you, this book it's fantastic. fantastic. I had not read it until this. This was my first read through. I actually ended up reading it 3 times in between the last episode of Book Nook and today, because I loved it that much. It had been on my list for a while since they had announced the film adaptation back in December of 2020, when Lucasfilm announced that they were going to continue that, to put that film into production after their Fox merger. But let's get into it. We open in the fictional land of Orisha. We are introduced very quickly to Zele Adeyemi. I'm not sure how the accents are done in Yoruba, so I'm not
I don't
sure
know
exactly
either.
how like the L's, and I know it's Ade, but I don't know how the L's are pronounced. So if I mispronounce it, please don't slaughter me in the comments.
I just called her Zelly. Like I just kept reading her name as Zelly in my head the whole time, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how you say it.
I was reading it as Zeely.
Well, see, there you go. That's the first thing I
I'm
said
not
right
sure.
before we started. I was like, I'm looking forward to seeing how each one of us pronounce each one of these characters' names, because I think it's going to be very different for everyone. But still.
And I think we'll start there, and we'll talk about Zelly, her character and her development from the course of the book. When we're first introduced to her, she's very like headstrong, hot-headed, very and I don't mean that in any bad sense, but she has a very like she's introduced as a very fiery character. She's very shoot first, ask questions later type of character. When you first meet Zelly in the book, excuse me, were you kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this character? Because I personally was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like our main character.
Yeah. I honestly had the exact same thought for like maybe the first 2 or 3 chapters with her. Since it's one of those kinds of books that changes POV a lot, which I really enjoyed the way that they told the story like that. At first I was like, man, she's a little too hot-headed for me. Like she's a little too selfish at the beginning of the book. It felt like, where she's so caught up with like her own desires that she literally like pushes her father off to the side and her brother's wishes off to the side. It came across like a little unlikable, but like as you go through the story and you grow with her, and you see a lot more of like what her motivations are as a character, things start to make sense, and you kind of start really getting behind her.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't like her because I saw some aspects of myself from when I was younger. That I did not personally like about myself. And I kind of like self-identified, because I definitely had some of that like hot-headedness when I was younger.
Oh yeah.
But as we, or actually I want to touch on something that you brought up. There's a very different way of telling the, or weaving the narrative. There we go. I got there.
Dang,
I
that's a good
the
term.
dots.
That's a good one, man.
I got the dots connected in my mind. Tomi Adeyemi uses the first person point of view in this book, which is not traditional storytelling when it comes for novelizations of things. And maybe that is where I connected that personalization with me, and I think that was intended. Was it brings you back to that age, because everything is done in the first person,
right?
So it's always I, and as you're growing with the characters. It's almost like you going on a walk down memory lane and going through that growth that you went through, from a child to a teenager to a young adult and on. I haven't read the second or third book yet. Well, no one's read the third book yet.
Yeah, the
but I
third
haven't
one's
read
not
the
out
second
yet,
book
right?
yet. But
yeah.
yeah, it's not out yet. But so I don't know exactly how much older we do end up with any of the characters, but I imagine that's why that was done. Max, did you find yourself identifying more because of the point of view in which the story was told?
Yeah, I like first person storytelling in these types of novels because especially when you're shifting point of views, it really lets you get inside their head. And it feels more like a friend telling you a story while you're like hanging out instead of reading a book when there's a third person omniscient narrator. So yeah, it's a nice and easy way to get for the author to get relation to the reader very quickly. And I like that. And especially when you're dealing with fantasy or magic and there's a sense of wonder, there's no better way to experience that wonder than hearing exactly what's going through the character's head.
Yeah, absolutely.
You made a good point about the third person omniscient narrator. And one of the things that I liked, and I guess this kind of we jump around here on the Pajukin.
It happens.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the end. Because at the end of the book, I was not sure how they were going to deal with bringing magic back.
Yeah.
And because of the first person point of view, you learn as the character learns what happened. And it allows you to be surprised. You're not in that situation that you find yourself in sometimes where the audience knows more than the character, because everything is told from that point of view. So you only know what that character knows,
Right.
which is
well, you are, but you aren't, which is the best part about this book, where it's like you're following Zele, her. I'm gonna say Zele because that's how I read it. You're following her journey with her brother and Amari, but at the same time, you're also following Amari's brother's journey and seeing like him following close behind, and you know that he's hot on their trail for like a good part of like the first half of the book. And it's really interesting seeing like when are these characters gonna like cross over, and converge and like end up on the same path together. So
Yeah, and sometimes it would also let you see the different perspectives from two sides, where you had like two different groups who were going to conflict or come to heads. You could sort of see how each side was preparing, which made it fun then when they met, and then you saw the varying fallouts.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I guess we can kind of shift to Amari now that, because we meet her next.
Yeah.
If I remember we meet her next, and she is also a character that I also wasn't quite sure about when we first meet her, and it's because I don't want to call, because this book isn't filled with a lot of tropes, but I think she was one of the tropes, the spoiled princess that gets pushed, that is pushed out of the nest and into the world that she's not prepared for.
She immediately reminded me of Jasmine from Aladdin.
Yeah.
She's more confident in her ability to navigate the world than she really is capable. But she also has this lurking power that she's almost afraid of, because of her father, the king of Orisha, who is I don't want to call him the big bad, because he's not like the big bad of the series, but he's the big bad of this book.
Yeah. He's an antagonist.
That was one thing that really surprised me, is knowing that it was going to be a trilogy. I sort of figured that Saren would stick around.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be like
later
a
books,
like a Professor Snow. Who the fuck is that? Like a President Snow kind of thing with like the Hunger Games book.
From the Hunger Games. Yeah,
yeah, I thought it was going to be like that.
And then I was like, oh shit, he's dead. So I guess we're gonna have someone else for them to have to deal with.
Yeah, and it may not even be someone, given the way the book ends. They just may be dealing with the fallout of their own actions.
See,
society.
This is the problem.
Society.
I started reading the second one, and I read a bit of the second one, and then I stopped and I was like, wait, maybe this conversation will be better if I don't actually know what happens. But now I know a little of what happens, including who or what the new big bad is. So it's interesting, but maybe we could follow up down the line.
Yeah, we definitely follow up, because I'm going to read the second book and the third book when it comes out for sure.
Dang, what the heck? I didn't mean to do that. Whoops. Sorry, I meant to click on something else.
It's magic.
Magic, baby.
But so Amari finds out that her father is in possession of a scroll.
A magic scroll.
Is able to give I want to make sure I get the tribe correct.
They can shapeshift into anything. In the comics, they were hiding amongst some of the Avengers.
So the people of Orisha are split into essentially two tribes or races, as we want to put this into a more real world framework. We have the diviners, which are all of the people who are able to wield magic in a different generation or the previous generation.
Before.
And then we have the Cosidans or Cosidans. I'm not sure how to
I was saying like Kosidan.
Yeah, I was somewhere along there. And the diviners are outwardly marked by their eyes, which are gray, and white hair.
White hair.
So they are easily identifiable in this world, and they've been systematically oppressed since King Saran had his first family was killed, and then he took it out on all of the diviners across the world. And found a way to remove magic from the world. Just to give a little bit of backstory. But he is in possession of a scroll that is able to return magic to any diviner that touches it. And the handmaiden for Amari is a diviner woman, and Binta, and she is exposed to the scroll as a test to see if it does what they think it will do, and then is immediately killed by Amari's father. Amari witnesses this and decides to steal the scroll and then run away. That was my moment where I turned, because that's when we start to see that glimmer, that spark that's inside of her, and the power that she truly possesses inside. And we get to that later on down the line. Yeah. But I want to talk about the next character that rolls in, Prince Enoch. Well,
real quick, I wanted to touch on something that you had said. You're talking about how like our first exposure to Binta, when she touches the scroll and like we get to see magic for the first time in the book. I love the way that Tomi, is that how you say her name? The author. I love the way that she writes magic in this book and the way that like she describes everything, because it just feels whimsical. Like when you're a kid, like because when she first grabs it in the book, it talks about how like fireworks come out of her hands and like all this, and it just feels like so like otherworldly. You know what I mean? It really helps with like the fantasy element of this book.
Yeah, the way magic is described is both beautiful and incredibly frightening.
Yeah.
It, for some reason, visually in my head, I was thinking of the magic in Doctor Strange.
Like the way that everything kind of has like a
Color to it and like a spin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of
Yeah.
like the visual,
smoky-
actual visual aspect. Yeah.
yeah. Same.
But it was really, yeah, I agree, really cool. Like, lots of fantasy and young adult fantasy books have magic in it. And
Yeah.
this was a really unique way to build it up and describe it and have all the fun, sparky aspects of it work. And especially as the book goes on and we get to learn more about the different types of magic, like the fire magic. You're right, Dwayne. It's also pretty intimidating. Like, this magic was like, oh, that could really fuck some shit up if it got to the wrong hand. So
Yeah, when we meet some of the burners, as they're called, later in the book, as they begin to try to bring magic back to as many diviners as possible. There are some people that go a little overboard, and you start to see, and it gives you the a little bit more, or it gives the characters a firsthand account of why things happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get all of the stories, secondhand from the characters about why magic was destroyed, why magic was so dangerous, but then you get a firsthand account from them. They're witnessing of it, and they're when it dawns on them that, okay, yes, this is and can be incredibly dangerous.
Well, also, and to that extent, the fact that there are different narrators, to a certain point, they are unreliable narrators because what they're telling us is only based on what they know or what they were told by their parents.
Right.
And as we see, there are certain things that happened were not as clear as we thought we were when we first heard about it, because then we hear someone else's experience with it. You're like, oh, they have totally different reasoning for why they did what they did.
Absolutely. And the next character that I really want to go into, and this is like one I really want to dive deep into, because it's my favorite character, and also the one that I like. When I found one that I identified with, I immediately was, this is who I identify with. And there's a very specific moment and reason why, and that character is Prince Enon, Amari's brother. And I don't know, but when we first meet him, he's very stoic. He's very militaristic. He's been raised to be the heir to the throne of Orisha. He's been raised, Orisha must come first. It does not matter about anything else. So he has a very linear thought process. And as things develop, he eventually comes into contact with the scroll and is revealed to be a diviner. Now, as far as I know, at least maybe I missed it when I read it, but his hair, we didn't find out about his hair until after his powers started to manifest, correct?
Yeah, because that was something that kind of confused me, because I was like, did they ever mention that he had this white streak in his hair, or was it never?
It felt to me like the hair manifested itself alongside the magic.
Right.
And that makes me wonder, are they truly separate? And maybe that was intentional. Are they truly separate people? Because up until this point, it was kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Insinuated that diviners could only come from a diviner lineage,
Yeah.
and that Kassidans could not have diviner children.
Yeah. That's
But-
kind of the same. That's kind of the same thing that I thought too.
So now that also makes me wonder who, if that's the case, if that is true,
Who the daddy?
what happened there, Saran?
I mean-
what's going on there?
Well, in the book too, they talk about how like there was a moment whenever we first meet Amari, and they're talking like she's talking about how some of the people who were in the palace with her mom were like make rumors about how their mom slept around basically with somebody else. So
Yeah.
I kind of in my head I put that away to be like, okay, let's keep track of that. Let's see if anything ever comes back around with that, because it seems like both the queen and the king were both kind of like sleeping around with other people because they were just like,
Yes.
man.
Well, the other thing to consider, and I was going through my head because, like I said, I had started reading part of the second book, and that really explains this. But I think there's enough context just in this book that at the end, and we're jumping around, when she does the ritual and magic comes back, at that point Amari has magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a different color.
It is. Yeah.
So perhaps there's ancient genes that of magic that skipped
Like,
generations, a different type of magic, and so it's like you're saying, more intertwined than originally thought. It's not so specifically
Dang.
diviners Kosidan.
So as we talk about Enon, this gets to some of the more real world themes, and this is kind of the stuff that I really want to talk about with this book. Part of the reason that I identify with Enon so much is because he is of two worlds but belongs to neither. And that's how I felt growing up. Aiden, I don't know about you, but
Yeah, that's why I kind once we
100%
got to
how
this
I
character, I thought that was the exact reason why you were like, okay, let's see if we can get him on, because it's a struggle that like, I mean, now that you're opening up about it on camera too, like it's a struggle that like I still feel like every day, being someone who's biracial, obviously identify more with, being black, because that's what you see when you see me, that's kind of just how I was growing up. But like, I don't want to steal too much about talking about this character, but like the way that he grew up in a household where this was the mentality that you have, like whether I want to accept it or not, growing up, as a child, I grew up with the, like this identity, growing up in this suburban white household, growing up in a very racist family, with their thoughts basically being put into my head, and ultimately finding the light and realizing what is wrong with you people. Why would you ever think something like that? Why would you ever say something like that about somebody? And I was a kid, so I didn't really know any better. But eventually, as you grow up, you learn more and you make your decisions for yourself. And I found myself today being very accepting of who I am. Still, sometimes I struggle with moments where I'm like, I don't know if Dwain can identify to this, but being not black enough to be in the black community, or
There's something I want
too
to
dark.
talk about.
Yeah, you're too dark to be white, or whatever it is, or us being queer people, you know what I mean? And then that's a whole other layer that you have added on top of everything, where it's like people on both sides of that don't want to have anything to do with you. And it's something that like I really struggle with my mental health every day. So I really enjoyed reading this character.
Yeah, so what you were talking about is where, like, because I also was raised in a much more white leaning suburban family, but then you have experiences that remind you that no matter what your family looks like, no matter where you were raised, the world still sees you as Black. And Anon had that same experience where it doesn't matter that he's the crown prince. It doesn't matter that he was in charge of all of those soldiers. The second they see that white hair, that's all they care about. You're a diviner. It does not matter. You know, there's and you have a slightly different like not upbringing, but you came up in a slightly different generation than I did. So like, when
we're 10 years removed, so it's very different.
We're 10 years apart. So when I was growing up, I was not light skinned. There was light skinned Black was like, you know, Nelly, Shamar Moore. That's light skinned. I was not even considered like a light-skinned Black person. I was just considered something else.
Yep.
You know, I was over here. Light-skinned is, you know, this range, and you're outside of that range, so you're not Black. Basically, is kind of the way it was when I was growing up. Yeah. We didn't have any popular, you know, biracial really people.
Because I grew up.
We didn't have
Brown, Drake.
You know, we didn't have Chris Brown. Like, we didn't have anyone who was high profile that was a color like me.
Right.
And so like now light skinned has kind of shifted to include all of us biracial individuals that are neither that don't have to pick a side and shouldn't have to pick a side. Yeah. But it's still something that pervades through the Black culture, and not just in Inan, but also when you when we're first introduced to Amari, they have this world's equivalent to bleaching your skin and lightening your features and trying to become as far removed from Blackness as you can to be considered more beautiful and more proper, and it's very strange that in the week that we finally did get to have this conversation about this book, we also have, you know, in the British royal family, it's being you know, revealed that someone was worried about how dark the prince was going to be.
Yeah,
and that boy looks exactly like his father.
He does.
Like he looks exactly like his father.
He is a white baby. There's just
that is a white child from the mountains of Caucasus.
But that's
no, you know,
it's
you know, when even within dealing with racism, when you add the element of colorism into it, that makes it even more complex, because that's not something I can relate to personally, obviously, but it's something I find interesting. And I felt that this was a really insightful depiction of it.
Yeah. I really like, that was the one theme that like stood out the most to me, was the fact that like this is the first time in like a fantasy book that's kind of aimed at like, you know, the YA demographic, and I'm really glad that they're able to read it where it touches on those themes, because again, what Dwain was saying, like the colorism growing up, I like, this was something that I struggled with, feeling horrible all the time, where like there was moments where like I was like, I wish I wasn't light skinned when I was in middle school or whatever, you know, because like you get fetishized in a weird way, but then at the same time people almost look at you as if you're better than somebody else just because my skin is lighter than somebody else. And that was another thing that I was never okay with, because it's like there's literally no difference between me and you. You know, all shades of black are beautiful. All shades of brown are beautiful. It just was something that it to this day just completely just boggles my mind, the way that some people can think like that. And I think this book did a really good job touching on those aspects, because again, Dwain, what you said with Amari, the introduction with her first chapter talking about like I was saying, how like they thought the mom might have slept around with somebody else, but like the fact that they were judging her based on her skin and making rumors like that because of her skin, it's just really shameful. But I'm glad that they touched on it in this book.
Well, yeah, and what you were saying reminded me. Did you guys read the little author's note at the end?
I didn't
of
read
the book?
it. I did not read
didn't
it.
read it either. No.
I'm going to do a bad job of paraphrasing, but basically she was like, people asked me, why did I decide to start writing this book? And she talks about stuff like Trayvon Martin and other unfortunate cases where Black children or teenagers or whatever were murdered by police who never gave them a chance. She said she wanted to write a story to show Black kids of all different shades and all different colors that there's power in them and stories worth telling. And I really liked how vulnerable she was about explaining why she felt it was important for her to tell this story. And then if you look at, popular fantasy YA books, there is none that are as unapologetically Black as this one. Other ones will have a Black supporting character, but then even in the Hunger Games, Rue dies, and she's sort of like the,
even in like Percy
lamb.
Jackson, like I love Grover, but it's like he's kind of viewed as like a joke character, and it sucks because he's the Black guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just awesome to have all the characters are Black and empowered and awesome.
Even the
all different
antagonists,
shades. Yeah.
Which I know I went online just to see like what other people thought about this. And there was a gentleman who was talking about how like, it's it's so bad that they like characterize like the Black people as villains. Like, no, it's not. Like, given the fact that you learn each character's like motivations through their POV chapters, and like even a character like what's his name, Sarin, like you see where his motivations came from, whether they're just or not. You see his motivations, and each character's written well enough to where no one here is a stereotype. No one here is like a joke. You know what I mean? Like every character is flushed out. Every character has a little bit of backstory and a reason to care about them. I just could not disagree with some of the people who make those points more.
I mean, also I would say that person, while their point may be well considered or well meaning on the surface, when you dig a little bit deeper, it's like this isn't a story where the main characters are white and the antagonist is Black. This is a world of nothing but Black people. What you just said is there needs to be some whiteness in this book.
Yeah. That's essentially what he said.
There doesn't. There does not need to be a white character in this book.
Yeah.
And the fact that granted there are non-Black characters in the book, they're relegated mainly to the sides, to the fringe, which doesn't really bother me because this is a Black story. And that means that the antagonist is going to be Black. Like,
I don't need a book about white villains with Oya also being like a very centric character, or like a character that's very centered to the story. It just doesn't sit well with me.
I mean, also we've had enough, stories about colonizers. We don't need that doesn't need to be this book.
Which is a theme that we learn about in the book with the destruction of this of magic. Whenever they went to what's the temple? I can't remember the temple. But when they went in and marched, and destroyed all the people who were there, and I thought it was beautiful. I can't remember the character's name when he talks about. He was like, they were like, "Oh, well, why didn't you defend yourselves?" And they're like, "Well, our gift is to like protect life and to give life, and we couldn't take a life." And I was like, "Man, that's beautiful."
Where is it?
So first, I want to say, Patty says, I'm beyond grateful for the show simply because I don't know that I would have come across this book on my own. I really like to hear that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then Brandy said, and this made me laugh, being glow in the dark white. It's great to hear from people who have more of a connection with the issues.
Oh, baby.
The last priest name was Lacan.
Yeah, David.
He was
David, you got it.
And he was in he was in possession of the bone dagger and told him that they needed to recover the sunstone.
Man,
and
I can't wait for this.
Just
I was like,
about
that. So they have to get their own Deathly Hallows.
But talking about that moment, the moment in the temple, when he starts to tell the story, did your mind just like kind of go off? My mind just went off, and I just started like having this like dreamscape picture. I
don't want to bring it back to Doctor Strange again, but when he first gets introduced to when he meets the Ancient One, and she first like puts her hand on his head, and he first like travels through that magical realm. That's sort of what I was getting. I was like, oh, this magic is beautiful.
Yeah,
same. That's exactly. I was thinking kind of like that, and I was also kind of thinking, like the way I visualize it. Also, it's like due to like what I grew up with as a kid. So like I envisioned a lot of like the Last Airbender, like the way that things, the way that they move in that show. I pictured a lot of that too. So I thought that was really, really cool. This is why I love books, though. Like the way that your mind just crafts these stories.
There's one other thing I want to mention in terms of what it reminds me of, and I don't want to spoil it for everyone because it's brand new, but Dwayne, you watched Raya and the Last Dragon, right?
Yes.
I found a lot of similarities between that story and Children of Blood and Bone, even down to the eerie part that the princess was named Namari, and in here it's Amari.
I still need to see that.
Sort of the quests to bring magic back. You know, that being the two female characters, Raya and Amari versus Zeely and Amari. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And if you haven't seen Raya, you should, because it slaps. I loved it so much.
Slaps, baby. I can't wait to see this thing done on film, though, because I love the way that man, I forgot his name again. What the heck? I love the way that they describe the way that those people look. I can't remember again, like what the name was that they were given, because they were like a whole other
they were like a group of priests. They were diviners,
they were like,
they had like they had the
specific
runes
duty
all over their bodies.
Yeah, I want to see how that looks like on film. I feel like that would look so cool.
I hope that it looks similar to Nightcrawler and Killmonger, like a combination of that, like
Killmonger,
like that keloided look.
Yes,
because that's I'm covered
ritualistic, a very real ritualistic like scarring.
I love that. I think that might be my favorite part of the book. Is like whenever they're first going on the journey and they're learning about everything. Because for a while I was like, man, I'm not really like quite at the halfway point. It seems like we're moving a little fast here. I was like, there's got to be something else going on. And then they're like, oh, you thought this was the journey? Oh no, we got more for y'all to go do. I was like, oh man. Let's see what
Patty says if Lucasfilm in 20th Century actually managed to get this movie made, the cast is going to be gorgeous, no doubt. And so for some reason, when I was reading the book and thinking of Zeely, my mind went to Hallie from Hallie and Chloe. You know, she's going to be also playing the Little Mermaid.
I pictured.
I was
I
like,
have to find.
It'd be great.
She was on Blackish, and she was in The Sun Is Also a Star.
Yara Shahidi.
Yeah, I was picturing her the whole time. That's who I was picturing.
I can see that. I can see that.
I didn't know who.
Hold on, I need to look. She actually is a child. Marseille Martin. She's also.
Blackish. Yeah.
Yeah.
From like my least favorite movie that year, Little.
Yeah.
God, I hate that movie. She's awesome in it, but I just don't like it.
I like
never saw it.
I like her and Regina Hall. I don't particularly like Issa Rae, which is sad because I like Issa Rae in almost everything else that she does. But that's
also,
we're not here to talk about Little.
while we're talking about like the way that we visualize things, it's like you know how the Proud Family's coming back.
Yeah.
Whenever they were talking about Mama, oh fuck,
Mama
I'm so bad.
Agba?
Yeah, I kept picturing the grandma from the Proud Family just bald. And I loved it so much. Like I was picturing her to like with like her pink like little what is it? Fucking like robe and like the slippers and all that. Like I was picturing the whole thing.
that's gotta be Octavia Spencer in the movie, right?
Ooh, Octavia. Whoopi.
No, okay, so I have
Whoopi would be
my
good too, yeah.
okay, so this is actually a good okay, so let's do Saran,
Okay.
Enon, and Lacan. Who would you cast as those characters?
Lacan.
I'm looking for the name. I have the actor in my head, but I cannot remember his name. I got it. Here it is.
I have to look up some stuff.
So for me, Lacan, I would pick Lance Reddick.
Oh, okay.
Who plays Chiron in John Wick, the hotel manager.
Concierge.
Yes, that is exactly who I was looking at. I am so with
as
you.
As soon as I like got the description, that is immediately who popped in. I was like, this is who I see. Like,
yes, absolutely. And literally who I was picturing, dude, as I read the book. Absolutely, man.
But that as I was reading it, I just that was who I saw it in my mind.
I kind of also pictured someone else who was on the wire with Lance, Michael K. Williams.
Michael
Could be
K.
cool
Williams.
too.
Let me see. Let me make sure I'm picturing the right person.
He's the one who has the big scar on his face.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Boardwalk Empire also. Lovecraft.
Yeah. He could also work. Absolutely. Damn, man.
He's
fine ass people. What the hell? Sheesh.
For Saran, I know that Tomi has said that she would like Idris Elba to play him.
I would also like Idris Elba.
I would also be perfectly fine with that. But just in case he's too busy playing James Bond, I was thinking, oh damn it, I just had it in my head, and Sterling K. Brown.
Ooh.
Because I want to see him not be the good guy. Like I want to see him just like I know that he could be so.
Well, did you see
He would be so evil and be so charismatic because Saran has to be charismatic as well. He can't just be.
Did you see the film Waves?
No, I didn't.
He plays a dad in that who, isn't a villain, but is definitely sort of a tough, pushing your kids to the limit, sort of dad. So he definitely has that intensity. And yeah, like he's in Black Panther, but only for a few minutes. And so to see him get a bigger role in this type of a world would be really cool because he's really talented.
Okay, I got two. Sauron, and to me, like this casting works for both of these guys. He could be Mahershala Ali because I think Mahershala Ali can do that like really imposing figure. It's not necessarily the way I pictured him in the book, but I think it could work where because Mahershala Ali, we all know dude's charismatic as hell.
Oh yeah.
Plus he's gorgeous. Plus he's really imposing. And then for the son, for the prince, you could pick Caleb McLaughlin, who was in Stranger Things, who plays Lucas.
Okay.
I think he would be really good as the prince if you got both of them two together. I think like visually it's there to like see if they would be related.
I was picturing Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. He was in Booksmart. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, and he was on the Love Simon TV show.
Yeah.
Love Victor. I can't remember his name.
And let me look him up.
Yeah. He. Ooh, that's
Mason Gooding.
Yes, thank you, Mason
Yeah.
Gooding. Yeah,
I was
because he's also really, really good looking.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
I was I immediately thought of Shamik Moore.
Mm. I think what I was picturing
isn't he on some people's shit list for some stuff he said last year?
Yeah, I think so. Probably.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of with Max here because like as I read the book, the way I was picturing the character is more along the line of like Mason Gooding. I think if you got Mason Gooding and then you got Sterling K. Brown, I think those two together, damn. Baby, am I gonna have to bring Al to go see this movie? What the hell is going on?
Well, it could also be the same actor that played his son in Waves, and I can't remember his name now. He was in Loose also.
I never saw Loose. Loose and Wave.
Kelvin Harrison Jr.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He could do that role justice as well.
Absolutely, man.
But okay, getting back to the book just slightly.
This is not just fantastic.
Yeah,
not
this
just
isn't
fantastic.
Just getting back to the book slightly. I was some of I think the best character moments for me were the interactions between Inan and Zelly. Not only her like the way that he talked about his magic and that he had to hold it back because it was too much and that he was constantly in pain.
Please tell me I'm not the only one who got a Kylo Ren and Rey in Last Jedi vibe from the way they were communicating. The way they're communicating with the magic. I was like, oh, I see. Okay, I see you.
From the get, I was like, oh, this is like the Force Skype. I was like, this is awesome.
I love it. It's so good.
Yeah,
I'm glad we're all on the same page.
I love the way that he like when it finally comes to a head and Zelly's like, your magic is so weak, and he's like, my magic isn't weak, I'm holding it back.
Yeah.
And he just like lets it go, and it just is so overwhelming. And I think that we can all identify with that moment when we just release everything that's we're holding on to. And it just, I mean, even when like my favorite moment in WandaVision is Wanda's explosion of grief when she creates the hex, like, because I identify so much with that moment.
Or even like there are certain things about me, traits that I like in different environments or climates will tone down. Like when I'm with my parents at like a fancy function or that sort, or in a business meeting, sometimes you're not going to want to be all yourself. And so then when you get back and you can finally let it all out again and just be yourself, it's really refreshing.
Like it might feel scary, but once it's over, it's just like this big, like you fine, let it all out.
Yeah,
it almost like, and I don't know, Aiden, if you felt this way as well. It was the perfect way of depicting what it feels like to be Black and move through the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you just mentioned, Max, when you talk about having to act a certain way in certain situations, that's called code switching. Like when I get on the phone and I sound like,
hello, how are you doing today?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Barry
what's up,
from
bro?
customer service. Like and the way I would be on the phone with, you know, a potential client versus the way I would be on the phone with Aiden is completely different. And it's not because of a professionalism standpoint, but it's because if I talked the way I talk with Aiden to a client, they would be like, there's no way I'm hiring this person.
Oh,
But there's
he was a
nothing wrong
little
with
thuggy for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and
go
ahead,
for it.
Greg. No, finish, please.
I was just gonna say I'm with you, Dwayne, with like the whole like having to essentially change. Like me in front of my family is not me anywhere else. Because when I'm me in front of my family, they're like they really be like, oh, he's the black family member. They're like, he's not. I don't know where we got him. I don't know how he ended up off the streets and into this household, but like we don't associate with that, you know. And it sucks because like that's me. Like I'm just being me. You know what I mean? Like, and it sucks that the world is like that. But yeah, that's a really good point that you made, Dwayne, saying that it's like holding back your blackness in a way.
Yeah, like I worked with predominantly white people for the past 11-ish years. And I only got to go home once or twice a year. And when I tell you, it felt like I said all my N-words, like a whole year's worth of N-words when I was at home. Cause like, I can't say that with all my white friends. I can't, like, I don't get to be this loud, like boisterous person because
It's for you.
then you're like, they're just like, oh yeah, he's being that stereotypical,
Yeah.
you know, word. I'm not gonna say it on this show, but that's they just, because of my skin color, they automatically go to, oh man, he's being ghetto. And I hate when people use ghetto as an adjective because it's not an adjective, it's a noun. It's not a way that you describe people. You know?
I had someone the other day, they were like, I love your hair. It's just like so perfectly ghetto. And I was like, why don't you literally wear a shirt that says I'm racist? I'd love that. Do that. They were like, it's just so creative and like so ghetto. And I'm
like, one I'm
sorry, I can't. Oh my god.
Like this is the type of shit that we have to deal with, man. And I'm glad the book captured it. You know, just one more quick story. Literally, I worked with my grandparents before this pandemic. I was learning to take over the business. It was a pretty high paying job. I was in a really good position because that's what I was given, and I was blessed to have had that. But my grandfather, and again, I've talked about my family, literally told me, he was like, your hair's so long, it's unprofessional. And I was like, actually, my hair is shorter than yours. I just have different hair than you have. And you just don't understand the fact that, you know, our hair is different. And he was like, no, it's unprofessional. And like, you know, people just aren't really going to hire you like that. I was like, so you're telling me because I'm black, they're not going to hire me because they don't like my hair and I can't fucking control that. You know what I mean? Like, it's those types of things that we have to go through every day. You know, I know for a while, like I got to a point where like my depression was taking over and I was just shaving my head bald for like a year and a half because I was like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be this. You know what I mean? If people are always going to look at me like that, I'm going to shave my hair. And then eventually I was like, fuck it. And I've been growing my hair out ever since, you know, and I just want, I want to be me, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be comfortable enough in my own body and my own presence all the time. You know what I mean? To be me. And people aren't going to like that. And guess what? Those aren't the type of people I want in my life. So it is what it is. Sorry, I went off on a whole rant.
No, it's a good one.
That's the great thing about amazing literature. And that's why I always roll my eyes when people dismiss things as, oh, young adult novels. No, is great storytelling can be. And like for me, like this book on its face is like a rip-roaring adventure with incredible world building, characters I love, magic. But it's all the other socio-political themes that are so elegantly weaved into the text that make it endure and make it worthy of significant discussion like we're having.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the one other thing I wanted to say, and I say this without meaning to diminish the Black experience whatsoever, is for me, one thing that I connected it to is, any genocide, but the Holocaust, where they wiped out as many and murdered as many of the diviners as they could. And then the ones that are left have a very visual signifier with the white hair, which always makes me think of when they forced the Jews to wear the yellow armbands around their arm here. So it's just so many things you can use this as a reference to and to contemplate that are deep conversations worth having.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and Brandy said it perfectly. Young adults are where these stories need to be told, so that they understand the world that we live in. Like sometimes explaining things to children in an adult manner is not the way to go. There's a reason we have fables and fairy tales. It's
Right.
because
Myths
are
are stories that are designed to educate and sort of trick you that you're being educated.
Yeah.
like that's why these types of stories have existed throughout human history, is because when you activate the imagination, it makes it easier to learn.
Yeah. You look back at the Greek myths. I love those Greek myths, but there are so many amazing parables that are moral and social lessons you can take and learn and apply to your everyday life. Damn,
Yeah.
now I want to read some Greek mythology. Whew.
Yeah. I'm like, bro, let me go back to Percy Jackson real quick. Let me go read those again.
I do have all of those books.
I need to go get all of them.
Every single one right behind me on the here.
I gotta pay rent first, and then I can go do those. I'm behind on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
So the other interesting thing is, and we talked about how the book shifts from perspective. So you have Zeele's perspective, Amari's perspective, and Inan's perspective. But then you have a fourth main character in Tsane, is how I was saying it. I don't know how you guys were pronouncing it. Insane, who's probably just as important of a character, but we never get inside his mind. We only hear about him mostly through Zeele and then Amari, because Amari ended up having a strong connection with him. So that was an interesting choice, to have one main character who doesn't get their own narration points.
Yeah.
I kind of liken this, and to bring this back to the real world almost, is when I think about where this novel spawned from for Tomi, right? And the social issues that drove her to create this world and create this story. It almost shows there's real world parallels to each character that we got. We have Zeele, who has always been on the side of Black Lives Matter and is leading the fight and has always been there. You have Amari, who is Black but never quite saw that side of the world because she was sheltered. You have Zane, who just kind of wants to keep his head down, keep quiet, move through the world because we can't fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Inan, who was on the benefiting side of the system and thinks that there isn't a problem, only to have his eyes opened up and to be shown the truth of the world. And those are all people that I know. Aiden knows. Those are all people that anyone who lives in
we all know them, and we're all one of them.
Yeah, we know those people, and we all are one of those people. So there's
it's also
I think that that's why that we have that character, and I think that's also why Zane was not given a point of view, because Tomi, as well as I think Aiden and I realize, that is a dangerous point of view.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's essentially trying to look at everything as objectively as possible, and I feel like that would have been really overwhelming to see his point of view of everything. It's almost, because I know it's like kind of taboo, but it's like, I don't know if you guys ever have thoughts about things that come up, whether in cancel culture or race or politics or anything that's like kind of touchy subjects, to people these days. And like, you might have a polarizing opinion on it, but it's like, you kind of want to keep it to yourself in a way, because it's like, I don't know if I want to get into that, because I don't know if people are going to be able to understand my point of view that I feel is just. I don't know. I feel like he was almost that character, where it's like, he's just going to do what's right by him and his family, and he's going to help these people who are trying to free the magic and essentially get Black Lives Matter noticed and established throughout the world, and he's just going to kind of go along that path, and be as neutral to everything as he can. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the time the book comes to a conclusion, he's sort of a centrist in his thinking, right? He's not, if we're going to equate it to just, American politics, he's not specifically left-wing or right-wing. He lands somewhere in the middle and is like, well, we can use tactics and ideas from both sides to find the best path forward.
Right.
And you guys were talking earlier about how you related to him, and I found him to be maybe the most compellingly written character in his complexity. But damn, sometimes he was frustrating. I wanted to smack him upside the head. I'd be like, are you fucking with her? Are you playing around to like obfuscate from your father when he shows up? Is it all been a trick, or do you really care? I was like, where are you landing? Make up your mind.
Yeah.
So that was like compelling to read, but also kind of frustrating. I was like, Arr!
Yeah. Big brother vibes.
I read some like user reviews online because I was curious what other people thought, and there were some people who were like, what a terrible character, I hate him so much, he's the real villain. I'm like, well, that's, I think, going a little too far there, maybe.
Yeah, that's a little too far for me, baby. A little too far for me.
Yeah. Patty says the amount of times where I was on the verge of screening because of Enon. Yeah, me too.
I mean, but that is I also was frustrated with him as well, but that's because I'm on the other side of that journey now. And I was frustrated in the if you would just listen, sort of frustration. It's like, if you just listen, you would get there quicker. But we've all been, teenagers. Teenagers never listen.
Dude, I'm barely out of being a teenager. I'm still in that weird path where like I'm finding myself.
That's the other thing to remember. It's like these characters are having the literal weight of the world, the future of their society on their shoulders, but they're like teenagers.
Yeah.
Like they're still dealing with like
me being 21 for like 5 days now is so different than me literally last year, let alone when I was 17. If me now met me when I was 17, I'm slapping the shit out of 17-year-old me, man. I was a little shithead, an absolute asshole, thought I knew everything in the world, knew nothing. I still don't know anything.
I was gonna say,
like sometimes
I was gonna make a bad joke and say, are you saying that's what you're not now?
Bro, I don't know if I'm gonna like myself in about a year from now. I might go back and look at this video and be like, man, what was I on?
What is up?
I know I'm gonna go back and look at a couple of Desertman live streams and be like, brother, what's going on with you? What is happening?
But yeah, I mean, I was frustrated with all the characters at different points,
Yeah.
except for maybe Amari, because other than my initial dislike of her character, almost from the moment we meet her, she was only on an upward trajectory for me.
Well, you just
Yeah.
like the trope, like seeing like, okay, that's what this character is. You know what I mean? But then like they essentially have their like they fill into their own shoes. Because I'm kind of with like I never had a problem with. If anything, I felt bad for her like multiple times. It's like, damn, Zelly, chill out real quick. She's doing the best she can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, she comes from a place of great privilege, and then by finally actually getting to see and experience the world around her, learns what the actual texture of her land is. But to a certain point, it's a privilege she was born into, and she was sort of kept in this very tight, strict bubble where her parents, her family didn't let her see anything else. So it's not entirely her fault. And when she's given the opportunity to make that decision, do I risk my life for the betterment of the world? Because my eyes have been open to what's out there. She takes it immediately. So yeah, I found her super compelling and easy to root for. And she's got some fierceness and some fire under her. They called her the Lionaire. Which was really cool. And that was another thing in this book that sort of gave me Hunger Games parallels, where like her being the Lionaire versus, Katniss being the Mockingjay, that sort of animal. And man, Lionaires are such cool animals. I would love to ride on one of those things.
Yeah.
I also loved what you were talking about earlier, where we get two sides of the same event, where we got the moment when she gets the scar on her back. We initially heard from like descriptions from other people. Then we heard, I think it was Inan's side of it first, where he thought that she was weak. He thought like she just didn't have it in her. And then we got her side of it, where she was fully capable of striking first and just couldn't bring herself to harm someone else.
She showed more strength in not doing so than she would have if she had.
That thing with the scars on her back, there's two obvious things you could think of symbolically or that it represents. The first, of course, is whipping in slavery times. And then the second is in the Holocaust, when they would tattoo numbers on the Jews, reducing them to basically an inanimate object in a system and stripping them of their humanity. And so by putting that word maggot on her back, it brands her. So and that's something she deals with throughout the rest of the book after that happens. She keeps living over and over again that phrase that King Saren said to her, as she, heals and feels the pain of that marking. So it's really well thought out and, compelling storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one thing I was going to ask. I was just thinking about it. I was like, did y'all feel like, and this is like, it's within the character, but a little off topic. Did y'all feel like it was necessary for Amari to have magic or not? Because, like, obviously, I don't know what the plans are for the sequel. I don't know where we're going with that story, but, like, I felt like she was already strong enough with the conclusion to the story, the way everything ended up with her family. I didn't feel like she needed another level, but I obviously don't know what's going forward.
Yeah, that, like I said, I'd started reading the second book and then put it aside. But that question is definitively answered. In the first few pages, and it's I will say it's far bigger than just Amari.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that sense. I mean, you don't have to confirm it, Max, but at the end of the book, I got the sense that basically everyone has been given magic.
Like the world has been given to this point where like everybody's kind of like, oh shit, we all got it? Hell yeah. Like, now what the hell is going to go on when people who like never wanted magic, now that they have magic, what's going to happen with that? What's going to happen to people who always wish that they had magic and now they have magic and they're going to abuse it? You know, there's so many different ways we can go with it.
What I will say to all of that is yes.
You know what it made me think of? It made me think of the quote, and I don't know where this quote originated, but Black people are only asking for equality. Imagine if we wanted revenge.
Ooh, baby.
That's what that evoked in me when I was like, okay, some people are going to want revenge for what happened to the diviners when the majority of them just wanted equality.
To be treated the same.
I think you should start reading that second book soon as possible.
I will read it after I read next month's book.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I gotta read next month's book first.
and watch the movie.
I will read the book first, then watch the movie.
Yeah,
Wait, did y'all already announce what next month's book is?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay, what is it again?
We're doing a crossover with a show called Watch the Book. So we're doing Never Let Me Go.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
A great book and a great movie.
All right. I'll look it up. Now this show's got me wanting to read again. Something other than comic books.
And so that's something else I wanted to bring up actually, and that makes me really happy. You know, I always say, because we do watch-alongs on this channel, I say if a movie I picked for a watch-along introduces it to someone who wouldn't have been aware of it otherwise, that makes me really happy. So I got a text yesterday from someone who said, legit, Book Nook got me back into reading of novels. I hadn't read a novel in I don't know how long, and just this year I've already read 4 books.
Nice. That's awesome.
So if that's even awesome. Like a minor little impact this silly little show about books.
And this is episode 2, baby. Imagine when there's a whole playlist.
I am so grateful for that. That makes me happy. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I love part of loving things for me is like loving it communally and getting to share it, like shouting from the rooftop, like, yo, read this fucking book. This is the shit.
And I want to kind of wrap up and like it's I'm not going to ask if you would recommend this book to anyone because I think that it's pretty apparent that we all love this book. Also, hopefully we never read a book that we don't want to recommend.
Right. Well,
for Book Nook, like,
you know, this isn't a book review show; it's a discussion show. So I try to curate, the books we pick.
Yeah, and I was gonna say also since we kind of curate the books, like I don't think we're gonna pick books that we don't want to read. But I would just, if you were going to give like a 2-sentence pitch to someone who has no idea what this is about, Aiden, I'll throw it to you first. How would you pitch this book to someone? Just 2 sentences.
So I'm picturing myself like standing in front of my family who oftentimes asks me questions about like, what is the experience like being Black? And I would probably just say, if you want to know a little more about what a targeted or discriminized experience might be, check out this book, and learn a little bit more about your society today through this fantasy. I don't know if that's 2 sentences, but that's what I would say.
Maybe close enough.
2 run-on sentences.
Yeah, I don't actually end things with periods. We just keep kind of going with commas, and then someone else jumps in, and we get like that little dash, like I got cut off.
A couple nice semicolons in there too.
Yeah, some semis. Yeah.
Max,
let me grab something.
So I would probably do more of like a elevator pitch or like salesman pitch where I'd be like, the great thing about Children of Blood and Bone is it's in the tradition of the very best young adult fantasy adventure storytelling, where it's rip roaring. You have compelling characters to root for, romance, adventure, magic, action. But within all of that, you also get a deeply and thoughtfully written look at a very Black culture and society dealing with issues of colorism and racism and all these things that, when melded with the adventure and fantasy, become a great educational tool where you don't realize you're learning until you really sit back and start breaking it down like we've been doing tonight. You're like, oh, that wasn't just a cool moment. That was symbolic of something that plays into the other themes of the book. That was also more than 2 sentences.
Yeah, it was.
It was very well put. But it was very well put.
Well, thank you. If I'm gonna talk too much, at least it should be articulate.
Yes, love it.
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you are looking for a book that will help you grow and understand the things that anyone in your life who is part of a marginalized demographic, no matter what that demographic is, if you're looking for something that will help you understand the way they have to navigate the world, this book will do that for you. And it'll do it in a way that will engage your heart, your imagination, and your mind in ways that nonfiction books just won't.
Yeah.
There's all these things, these resources and nonfiction books that can help you get a more historical understanding, but the true emotional weight and understanding, you need something like this, and that's what's so beautiful about this book.
Yeah. And the other thing I would add, just as a qualitative assessment, is I read a lot. I read maybe 50, 60 books a year, so averaging one a week or so. And this would be very, very high up on the list of things I've read in a while. That's
Nice.
how in such high esteem I hold it. And to me, what's equally impressive is Tomi, it was 23 when she made, I think it was the biggest deal in publishing history for an unknown quantity, a 7-figure deal for the trilogy of books and the movie rights at the same time.
Yep.
Get your money, girl. Hustle that, work that. That was so awesome to see.
What the fuck am I doing in my life?
And then, she delivered. It wasn't hype. This book is fucking awesome. And good for her. I'm such a big fan of her now. And I can't wait to finish the second book and read the third, and then hopefully she'll create tons of other magical, awesome worlds for us to get lost in.
Absolutely. I hoped that this is not a inheritance cycle kind of situation where she only writes this and then doesn't give us anything for a decade. Please. I know that's selfish of me to ask for more when she's given us so much already, but she is so wonderfully talented that I would hope that she has more stories.
I have a question. So do y'all two just pick the books for this show, or do you guys is it like a Patreon thing where people can recommend, or what is it?
So far, it's just been Dwain and I talking and picking and kind of alternating. But I think we had sort of discussed, if we've been doing this 6, 7, 8 episodes and we have a groove, that maybe we would add a Patreon tier.
Okay. Because I wanted to ask about a book if y'all would want to do
also
it.
dreading, if they someone picked a book and I was like, this is my least favorite book. I don't want to
talk War and Peace. And no.
Someone. Well, I love War and Peace, but someone's like, yeah, please do the Fountainhead. I'm like, fucking no, I read on Book Nook.
Well, I wanted to say, I know that
Huckleberry Finn. No.
I know Dwain loves this book, and I've been looking for a reason to start it for a while. Is there any chance that I can say, can we do this book one day?
I will say this: I have read it. It's one of my favorite books. It's
that book is also I do believe I put it on the list. When we'll get to it, I don't know, but
If y'all get to that, let me know so that way I can read this
I am a
book.
massive fan of the book. I just feel like it would need to be like a 2 or 3 part like mini series just to cover that one book.
What we might maybe that's one we do where we'll like announce it a couple months ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then we can like announce at the end of that episode to do like the Wise Man's Fear like another like 6 months down the road, and then maybe
like
by then we'll finally get the third book.
Third one, yeah, we can do that. So we're still doing the monthly ones, but then this beast of a book is going concurrently. I'm into that because, like I said, I love this book.
Let me know because this is the next one that I'm starting.
And I gotta say, like it is long, but it reads quick. It moves. It's not like Game of Thrones, which I like.
I love Game of Thrones, but it's
Game of Thrones can get dry sometimes.
Woo.
And Name of the Wind is really artful and beautiful, and you're always like taken into the magic of the world and the characters. It's so good.
Yeah, it's not to get too far off of the book that we are talking about, but the Name of the Wind, although I think The Wise Man's Fear is the better book, The Name of the Wind is my favorite book of like all time. And it's because it introduces us to the world, and it does such a masterful job of making you love that world that it like
I know Gio's talked about it. He's the reason why I bought it. And then whenever I told you I bought it and you're like, oh, that's my favorite book. I
have 2 copies of it. I that's how much I love it. I have 2 copies. I have I actually have a reading copy. So this is the copy that I read. I also have the 10th anniversary edition.
Damn.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, that looks dope.
It is so beautiful.
That is beautiful.
I have never read this version of this copy of the book.
I don't blame you.
Because for me, it's
just a fancy man who likes leather-bound books and rich mahogany.
But so this copy of this book has been to more countries than probably any book that anyone else owns.
Been to more countries than I have. I've never been out of this country.
I've taken it with me on every single deployment that I've been on since I bought it.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. You should read it, Aiden and everyone at home. And I see Brandy says she loves it. Read it, which is dope.
Dang, Brandy read it.
I think with that, I think we'll close out and just from the bottom of the top to the top. I think that we can all say that we love this book, and you are doing yourself a favor if you read it. And if you have read it, please shout to the fucking rooftops about it and ask other people to give it a chance, because things like this only get the chance to bring more artists into the fold, especially artists of color, if people support them.
Because at the end of the day, publication, like anything else, is a business. And when they see that something sells, then they start banking on that again and again and tapping into that market.
But with that, Aiden, I know you got a lot of stuff going on now. Let everybody know where they can find you.
I'm going crazy these days. I'm gonna try to make it simple. Anywhere and everywhere at Aiden Kossick, AIDEN KOSSICK. I'm streaming Miles Morales on Twitch, YouTube, Periscope, all that fun stuff. We do Dessert Men Live with Dwain up at the top every Friday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We get pretty real with our topics. We mainly talk about movie news and entertainment news, but we like to get political as well. We're not afraid to talk about some of the things that maybe some of the people that you follow are afraid to talk about. I'd love to come back on this channel again. This was a lot of fun, guys. So if you guys want to see me back, let me know. I don't know. This is fun. I really appreciate the fact that you guys asked me to come on. I wasn't expecting it, but I had a hell of a fun time reading this book. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I'm glad. That's awesome.
And you can find me anywhere and everywhere on the internet at Burke Made. In about 15 minutes on Twitch because that's where I'll be. You can find me tomorrow on my YouTube channel, 4 p.m. Pacific time for technical difficulties. No, I still don't know what the topic is going to be. I'll figure it out when I wake up tomorrow. And then you can find, actually, I have something new that I started last week on Twitch prior to prior to technical difficulties. I am streaming my pre-show prep on Twitch. So all of the steps that I take to get my stream up on the internet, all the different ways that I promote it.
Stream your prep.
I mean, we all need prep in our lives, right? But all of that is happening. Me and Max always do this joke, and everyone is like, what are they talking about?
I don't get it. I'm just enjoying it.
Yes, Brandy, I need 21 more subscribers on my YouTube channel to get my custom URL. So please go do that before someone steals it from me and makes me pay for it because they're banking on me becoming famous. But yeah, so on Twitch, prior to technical difficulties, I'm doing all my pre-show prep. So you can come ask me questions about why I do things a certain way I do them, why I have the workflow that I do. And then I don't know the actual YouTube channel or the show name, but I'm going to be on a show with Chance Ellison tomorrow talking about our top 5 superhero portrayals. He asked me about an hour ago, and I said yes because I've got the time.
Send me the link to that.
Yeah, I want to watch that. That sounds really fun.
So
now I'm thinking, like, who would I put in that list? I'm like,
yeah.
Oh,
damn, Chance, I don't know you, but let me get on the show.
I've been brainstorming, and I've already got about 15, and I need to start I just need to stop and start cutting it down. So, Max, I will pass it to you to give us the final word.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was another great episode. Like I said at the top, we'll be back next month. It's going to be Tuesday, April 13th, I think we said, for Book Nook 3, where we're joined by Danny over from Call to Action. It's sort of like a mashup with her show, Watch the Book. We're doing the book Never Let Me Go, which also has a beautiful film starring Keira Knightley and Andrew Garfield. So read the book, watch the film, and then we're going to talk about both on Tuesday, April 13th. Just real quick here on PJCN, like I said, tomorrow night, Suddenly Soundtracks, breaking down and talking about Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory track by track. Thursday night, Front Center Mez is back. Myself and PJ will be interviewing the Broadway actor Andrew Kober. He's been in everything from Hair to Les Mis to School of Rock and on and on. It's going to be great to talk to him. And Friday night, we have a watch-along of The Invitation. This is Women Filmmaker Month. This film is by Karen Kusama, and it was selected by our great executive producer, patron, Brandy Parker. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you to all of our patrons. Could not do this without you. On behalf of all of us, thank you for kicking it with us tonight and talking about Children of Blood and Bone. Please stay safe. Wear your mask. Get vaccinated when you're able to, and we'll see you next time.
Book Nook, take a look at that book, yeah. Book Nook, it's time to read a book. Everybody open to page 1. Don't forget to pay attention. It's a book nook, yeah, oh yeah.